कैसे हो? नक्शेबाजी के अगले एपिसोड में आप सभी का बहुत बहुत तहे दिल से स्वागत है। आज का जो टॉपिक हम आपके सामने लेकर के आए हैं बेटे, दिस इज एडवेंट ऑफ इस्लाम एंड इट्स स्प्रेड। जो अर्ली टाइम पीरियड में, जिन हालातों में, जिस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, जिस बैकग्राउंड में इस्लाम took its roots and the way it started spreading, in what kind of a geopolitical context, I would touch upon these issues. Of course, I would also be talking about the entire Shia Sunni divide, which is somewhere at the core if you want to understand the current political situation, current international affairs. Because the Shia Sunni divide, right, it is something which has created a lot of issues in the past, and it continues to stay a very, very complicated affair. So I would touch upon that issue, right? This is where it all began. This is where history of Islam began. Deserts, right? The deserts. And there were two oasis towns here somewhere, Mecca and Medina. And that is where our story is going to take place, and that is where I'm going to take you today. So, all right, we'll begin. And before I begin, I think I should also tell you something about the current status, right? And this is a very, very illuminating data which, I'm presenting with you right here. Bada illuminating data laga mujhe. How so? These are the top 4 faiths of the world. Religious faith. सबसे बड़ा numerically, Christians 32% spread here in these regions, the purple color. Next biggest is Muslims, a substantial 24% spread here and there as well. This is your Indonesia, archipelago. And then the third group, interesting group, Hindus, 16% living here. In these global times when, your religious identity is becoming very, very, very important at least, right? These numbers do tell us a lot about the tussles, the stresses which can be produced in the society, right? So moving on, without much delay, I'll take you back to year 600 CE, and I want to tell you this is where this is where in this context Islam ka janma hoga, right? So have a look. Let's have a look. This is Arabian Peninsula. During this time, the Arabian Peninsula was a collection of these small tribes, polytheistic, idol worshipping tribes who would fight for limited resources which were present in this region. They had a place called as Kaaba, which they considered sacred. Kaaba was in Mecca. Mecca was a huge pilgrimage center. A lot of trade lines. This region, this was very famous for frankincense, Lohban, right? So several urban centers started cropping up here. The old tribal kind of setup, the clan-based, existence, that started declining. There was a lot of inequality which started coming into this structure. The old days of nomadic charm were gone. There was inequality, right? It is in this kind of a setting which typically would remind you of the time of age of Mahajanpads, will emerge Prophet Muhammad and will come up with the tenets of Islam, right? This also gives an analogy for me in my head, at least. The analogy which I can think of is one that of Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya, he also responded right? Because he saw that within Hinduism there were so many people worshipping this god, that god, this goddess. He responded by coming up with Panchayatan, by saying that you can worship all of them because it's Advait, dude. Right? The difference probably is the geography. Hamari geography, subcontinent's geography was, endowed with so many resources that here we can worship 4 people, 5 people. हमने एक को घी चढ़ाया, 4 को और चढ़ा दो यार, क्या जाता है? But rest of the world, especially this entire region, right? This is not like this. They face severe resource crunch. And this is somewhere, if you look at it, all the 3 Abrahamic religions, they come from here. Christianity, Islam, as well as your Jewish religion, sab yahan se aate hain. And they have that, aggressive streak somewhere. This is my opinion. I'm so sorry. I'm not supposed to do that. I'm so sorry, right? But yeah, because we had so much of resources here that we could think like in the direction of Panchayat and others couldn't. Right? Interesting. Anyway, the point being that this is how the situation was in Arab. Let us notice the Arabian neighbors, please, here. On the northern and the western side, the red-colored Byzantine Empire. This was the eastern faction of the Roman Empire. Roman Empire had been disintegrated. It had disintegrated in 4th century. And Germanic tribes ki wajah se. And what was left was the Byzantine Empire. So this was a neighbor, a strong empire, but by 600, it was indicating signs of weaknesses. Do you see? It was controlling Syria, the entire Palestine, Egypt, right? And notice this yellow region. These are your Sasanians. These are your Sasanians. They were controlling a lot of, area, including Afghanistan. Right? The Sasanians, they were also controlling regions of India. Sasanians for a while, just after the Kushans. The Sasanians were called as Kushan Shah. Okay, so moving on. अपने ये जो भाई ये context है, right? Sasanians, they were Persian, they were practicing Zoroastrianism, and they also were a very strong empire once. Now they were declining. In this context, certain events you need to understand. Let's try and see. 570 के वर्ष में मोहम्मद इनका जन्म होता है at the town of Mecca, right? And he belongs to the Quraysh tribe, and he belongs to a family which was from Hashimi clan, a very wealthy clan apparently. But as the destiny would have it, the prophet got orphaned very soon in his life when he was 6. Right? When he was just 6, he got orphaned. Abu Talib, who was his uncle, he took care of him, and Abu Talib's son was Ali. They were quite close. Right? Now, Muhammad saw the entire society in flux around him. He saw how things were changing. The inequality that I was talking about. He did not like it. And somewhere he became very disillusioned. He started visiting these, Hira mountains, Hira caves near Mecca, just to search for some seclusion. And there, in year 610 CE, right, in year 610 CE, the angel known as Gabriel, it is believed that Muhammad started seeing Gabriel and started receiving ayah, or the ayah, which is called as revelations, right? So he became, just like probably Buddha, the enlightenment takes place here. Okay. As you can expect, right? As you can expect, if an experience of this kind happens with anybody, right? That person can actually start doubting herself or himself. You can start doubting your own sanity. I mean, I have read about it in the case of Buddha as well, right? That once he attained enlightenment, he just went and hid himself in forest because he thought that people are going to consider him mad. And similar thing seems to have happened in this case as well. Prophet, he would get absolutely, he would start shaking as if a nightmare. And it is believed that it was his first wife, a very strong woman, Khadija, who was, a dozen or so years, older to Muhammad. And she was the one who would, console him. And she was the one who somewhere convinced Muhammad that, this is not shaitan, this is not Satan. Right? And these ayah, they were, later compiled on the orders of the third caliph. Right? They were compiled into surah. Surah is a chapter of a Quran, right? Surah is a chapter of Quran. So, in 610, as I was telling you, he started seeing these revelations. And by 613, he decided that it is the time to start openly preaching. And he started preaching that there is none but one God. He started teaching that idol worship is bad. Islam was not simply a religious revolution. It was a social as well as a political revolution in that geography. It focused on one of the underlying tenet was of egalitarianism, right? So as he was talking about, he was talking about equality. So people, the elites, including his own clan members who were in power, they started getting hostile towards Muhammad and his early followers. They started facing a lot of hostility from Meccan elites, right? As a result, in 622, Muhammad decides to leave for Medina, which was another city close by, right? He reaches Medina, and this is year 622 according to Christian calendar. And this is precisely the year where Islamic era or Islamic calendar begins from, right? This is known as Hijri calendar. The first journey is called as a Hijr. Okay? He moves on and achieves stupendous success. Right? He dies in 632. Yet, by that time, he has been able to unite most of the Arabian Peninsula under the banner of Islam. He dies without leaving an ear. कोई भी उन्होंने nominate नहीं किया किसी को. There were a couple of contenders here. One was Ali, which I've talked about. Muhammad had made several references throughout his career which seem to imply that Ali is the inheritor. But then there was the other group which believed that the larger community, the elders, the ummah, they should decide. And they wanted Abu Bakr to become the caliph. Who was Abu Bakr? Abu Bakr was Aisha's dad. Who is Aisha? Aisha is considered as Prophet's favorite wife. Prophet's favorite wife. She was the one who was much, much younger. Right? And she also played some very important role in the early history. Right? Okay, so what happens is Ali, he doesn't want any trouble. He doesn't want the fledgling community to unnecessarily get divided. He says, all right, you can become the caliph. Abu Bakr is the elder one. He allows him to become the caliph, which he does. Right? A lot of tribes which Prophet had, conquered, they started declaring their independence. They started declaring their independence. And the caliph, right? Abu Bakr dies after 2 years and he's replaced by a very talented caliph, Umar. Right? So this Umar guy and Abu Bakr, they started, once again winning the area back. These wars are called as Ridda. Right? And it is this momentum of Ridda wars where they were trying to, reconquer the area, which carried them into the Byzantine land and the Iranian land. They started capturing Syria, Egypt. Similarly, Iraq, Persian Gulf, all that region was captured from Persia. Right? Yeah, this is the map that I want you to remember. Yeah, Umar was a very talented person. Right here, this one. Right? He established irrigation network. He established cities such as Basra. He established Bayt al-Mal, the welfare department. He's introduced child benefit and elderly pension. Can you believe this? This is 630s I'm talking about. This is where this fellow also comes into the picture. You can keep the name in mind, Muawiyah. He was from Umayyah family. He went to Syria as governor. Umar appointed him. And there he made Syria, Damascus, his power base, became a major power himself. Major power. Defeated Byzantines, created his own navy. बहुत बलशाली हो गए भाई. Arabia was a land, मतलब लोग के पास अभी ships नहीं थी, navy नहीं थी इस्लाम के पास. It was this guy who established it, Muawiyah. He made Syria his base. Okay, moving on. So, Umar, right? He died, and from that, we move to Uthman. Uthman stays the, caliph for 12 years. Uthman was also from the Umayyah, rich Umayyah family. Umayyah family of Mecca, जहाँ के मुआविया थे, वहीं के ये भी थे. Uthman. He is the one who is credited. One very interesting, development which took place was because Uthman did not want to everybody, everybody shouldn't have their own dialects when they are reading Quran. He wanted to make it uniform. The accuracy should be maintained. Just like probably in the ancient times, the way Vedas, their phonetic, utterance was considered sacrosanct. Such is the belief here as well. Right? तो उन्होंने उसको जो है फिर एक प्रॉपर अरेबिक लहजे जो होते हैं उसको एकदम यूनिफॉर्म बनाया. Okay, fair enough. He was assassinated in 656. And that is when finally Ali ka number, Ali Talib, Abu Talib's son. Finally he becomes the Caliph. And now these Umayyads, especially that Muawiyah chap, right? He is hell-bent upon creating trouble. By 661, Ali is, assassinated. केवल 5 साल के लिए वो कैलिफ रह पाते हैं. Ali leaves behind 2 sons, Hassan and Hussein. Right? Hassan is the elder one. He signs a treaty with Muawiyah that, okay, you can be the caliph, it's all right. But I have a couple of conditions. Right? What is that? Be just. And you mustn't establish a dynasty. Do not establish a dynasty. मतलब ये मत करना कि the entire office of caliph becomes, your ancestral property कि आपका बेटा अगला caliph बन रहा. Muawiyah agreed, but then, forgot about it. And Muawiyah established that Syrian governor, he established what is known as the Umayyad Caliphate, which ran from 661 to 750. It is under this Umayyad Caliphate that Muhammad bin Qasim was sent to Sindh, to conquer Sindh, which they did, Chachnama. All right. Acha. So coming back to this point, 661, Hassan signed a treaty, right? Hassan said, all right, do not establish a caliphate. But Muawiyah did not listen. And as a result, the second son of Ali, who is known as Hussein, right? He went and with a small band of followers, hardly anybody. He knew that he knew that his cause is lost, but he still had the confidence that what he is fighting for is worth fighting for as well as dying for. Right? And he went there, and at Karbala, he and all his followers were massacred. This is known as Battle of Karbala in 661. The Shias, they believe, dekho samajhna, the Sunnis, they believe that the first 4 caliphs are the Rashidun Caliphs. The Shias, on the other hand, they believe that it is Ali who should have been the caliph in the first place. And they believe that Ali was their first imam. Right? So it is on a few of these grounds that certain differences exist. Right? This is the map of Umayyad Caliphate. See how they spread after Rashidun, they spread to so much of region. They captured the entire northern Africa. They captured even the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, Portugal, gone. They even invaded France, but were beaten. By 750, Umayyads were kicked out of power. They were kicked out of the power. And this time emerges the Abbasid dynasty. And they usher in the golden age of Islam. Right? Where your caliphs such as Harun al-Rashid, right? They established, the city of Baghdad and came up with those wonderful libraries. Right? Chaliye, God bless you all. Have fun and stay good. And let me know how do you feel about this series, right? Let us know. Okay. God bless you. Bye.